Before starting the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.
After returning home, Scott's wife had transformed into a ghastly apparition of her former self. Her flesh turning a sickly gray and her eyes sunken and lifeless. Scott could feel the terror clawing at his mind, but he couldn't deny the overwhelming sense that something was terribly wrong. He abandoned his job, dedicating his days to taking care of his wife. Though it seemed a hopeless task, she was no longer the Eva he knew. Reduced to a skeletal wraith with a disturbingly lifelike doll clutched in her bony fingers. Scott tried to take it from her, but it was as if the doll had become a part of her, and she would not relinquish it. As the days wore on, the horror of their situation deepened, and Scott descended into a bottomless pit of despair. He turned to the bottle, the only relief from the unrelenting terror and misery that consumed him. But even that escape was fleeting, as the booze eventually ran dry, leaving them to languish in filth and squalor. They sat in the darkened living room, their only companionship the stench of urine, vomit, and excrement. Eva played with the doll, her voice a pitiful croak as she spun tales to the unresponsive toy. It was during one of these macabre gatherings that Scott saw something that shattered his already fragile grip on reality. The doll was changing before his eyes, its plastic exterior giving way to writhing, pulsating flesh. The black eyes fell away, replaced by murky human orbs, and teeth sprouted from the gaping maw. The doll grew, expanding in size until it was almost human-sized. And still, Scott sat frozen, unable to comprehend the horror before him. In his addled mind, he could only blame the drink, convinced that his drunkenness had conjured the impossible. One day, Scott heard very strange sounds that woke him up from his sleep, as if someone was greedily sucking on juice remains. Scott decided to check if it was just his imagination and grabbed a nearby chair for protection. Holding his weapon tightly, Scott walked into the living room where the sounds were coming from his wife's room. He carefully pressed his ear against the door, and his hand slowly reached for the handle. Pushing the door open, Scott rushed into the room, ready to attack, but the chair slipped from his hand. The same doll sat on Eve, sucking everything out of her with its long proboscis like a mosquito. The flesh pulsated, oozing out a transparent slime. The doll's hazy eyes roamed the room until they rested on Scott. The proboscis detached from Eve's body, revealing a genuine leather bag of bones. A wide grin appeared under the proboscis, and something resembling a grotesque combination of a fly and a human squealed loudly, jumping in place. "Now it's your turn, Daddy. I hope you're just as delicious."